welcome back. First of all, I know it's been a minute. Since I just got on here and chit chat, but you know, life has like things are happening, positive things, by the way. Let me stress that, positive things. So it's been a minute, but we're here, and I'm here to talk my little ish. You know, I only talk about things that move me, that interest me, that I have like great opinions on. Girl, let me, whew. You know, sometimes you wear like a tight shirt and then the bra is perfect for this shirt because it snaps in the front. My ladies, y'all know what I mean. Like the bra snaps in the front. So, you know, the bras that snap in the front give a little more va-va-voom, which is what this shirt was made for. But that's neither here nor there. We are here today to talk about the Netflix series, Jeffrey Dahmer. We're here to talk about it. Some things stood out to me to the point that I was like, I have to come and talk about it. Like, I just have to get some things off my chest. And I know y'all gonna be rocking with me, so that's why I'm here. No, let me stop. Also, do y'all like these braids? Y'all, I get these braids, and when I tell you, like the design and everything, you would have never known that 5 years ago, I didn't know how to braid. Like, I want to say like 5 years ago, I could not braid at all. I wasn't one of those little girls that played with the dolls and did braiding hair. That just wasn't me. So I didn't know how to braid. But I learned, and baby, I think these are like the best braids that I've ever done. Anyway, I have a video on that. That's not why we're here. So excuse me, okay? Just getting some house cleaning items out of the way. Of course, if you haven't already, if you're not already, y'all already know what I'm gonna say. Please like this video, comment, let me know your opinion of this video, subscribe. Hello, it's free 99, guys. Like, even if you never watch my channel again, like, let me just get that subscribe, because I'm trying to get my subscribers up and I want to get my watch hours up. You guys know I haven't been so serious about YouTube, but I'm really trying to get back to it. So just be patient with me and, you know, put some belief in your girl, and I'm gonna step up the content. That's my promise. And guys, I am going to Paris for my birthday in like 30 days. Well, less than 30 days. And so I'm so excited about that. So I got a travel vlog coming up in Paris. Bonjour, ça va? Comment allez-vous? I mean, I've been studying French like y'all, the whole shebang. But anyway, that's not why we're here. Let's get back on track. So if you haven't already, or if you don't know already, Netflix has a series called The Jeffrey Dahmer Story. And if you're like me, I was very young. I was like 6 when all of this happened. Some of you may have not even been born yet. So it's good for them to tell this story, because a lot of us really don't remember, or we're too young to remember, or weren't even born yet. So I like these biopics that talk about things that, you know, famous cases and things like that we weren't around for. Now, Netflix always does a good job at the biopics. If you guys watched the Central Park 5, I mean, that one was A1. It's very triggering, very, very triggering, but I think the storytelling of it was actually really good. So there's that. Also, this is created by Ryan Murphy, and if you guys don't know, Ryan Murphy is the American Horror Story creator, and American Horror Story is A1. Like, the storytelling on there is A1. Now, so you put those things together, Netflix, Ryan Murphy, biopic, true story, real events, you're probably gonna have a hit on your hands. And whether or not you agree with retelling this story or not, there are some things that I think we can all appreciate. So just starting at the top, from a cinematic perspective, this series is A1. The way it's shot, the way it's filmed, everything about it is top notch. The sequencing is so different. And I don't know if a lot of people notice this, but through, it's 10 episodes, right? Through the episodes, it doesn't start from his childhood and then till he's an adult. It doesn't just start from his childhood and then when he's an adult, or it starts as he's an adult and it goes backwards, or it jumps around. No, no, no. It does a mixture of all things. So the first thing is, simultaneously, it's telling the story from when he gets caught. It starts at the place where he gets caught, and then it goes into his childhood, and then it goes from him as an adult to the murders to when he gets locked up. So the sequencing is literally going forward to backwards, backwards to forward, and the victims, the killing of the victims are not in order. They're random. And so I think when you have storytelling from his childhood to adulthood, and then from the time he's caught till prison, and then you mix that in randomly and simultaneously with his victims, that sequencing, just from a cinematic perspective, is A1. It really is. And if you're someone like me that looks at things like that, because those are the things that make the series more interesting, then you'll love it. So I'm not going to go over everything, but I do want to talk about some special moments. So there are spoilers here. Spoiler alert. If you haven't watched it, or if you're one of those people that is going to be, it's going to ruin it for you, then stop here, go watch it, and then in a few days when you finish the series, come back and watch this video. So let me just say that there are spoilers. So one of the first things that stuck out to me, and I'm going to get into a few of them, so not in any particular order, but just like one of the first things that stuck out to me was the young man Connor. He was the young man who was the brother of, I can't think of the brother's name, so please excuse me, but his brother was molested by Jeffrey Dahmer, and they had a whole court case and everything. And they let him go with a slap on the wrist. The judge is like, oh, you remind me of my grandson. And we'll get into why all of that is so triggering, because you know there's a racial aspect to it. So we'll get into that. But the story about the young man Connor, who was 14, I guess he's seen him at the store. He took him home. The boy recognized him. The boy said, hey, yes, I remember you. You're the one that, like, you know, were arrested for assaulting my brother. And he's like, well, if I'm such a bad guy and I assaulted your brother, why are you here? And he's like, well, you say you would give me $100 to take pictures of me, and my family needs the money. And so that really stuck out to me, that this young man, 14, felt like even though he knew Jeffrey Dahmer was a bad person, there was such this need for money that he still went home with him. And unfortunately for this young man, he was not as fortunate as his brother to escape, because his brother actually had escaped, and that's how he was arrested. He was able to escape him, but unfortunately Connor was not. He is also the young man that the neighbors in the building, including Glenda Cleveland, who was Jeffrey Dahmer's neighbor, her daughter and her had called the police when they saw the young man. He looked completely out of it because Jeffrey had drilled a hole into his head. And so he had really incapacitated him. And if you don't know the full story, like, you guys can do your own investigations and due diligence on it. I'm just talking about the series. For me, while I was watching the series, I was Googling certain things, like, to see what was fact and what was, you know, things being added in for shock factor or for entertainment. So there are a few things that I was like Googling, like, okay, is this real or not? But anyway, this was a real incident. He had drilled a hole in the young man's head. They called the police. The police got there, and Jeffrey claimed that, oh, they were just, that was his boyfriend. He was 19, and they were just doing gay stuff, you know. And I think that's one of the things about this entire series and this timing was, like, the late 80s, early 90s, gay stuff and AIDS, like, that was prevalent. That was something that was kind of a hush topic that people were not ready to address and face. And so a lot of crimes were overlooked and swept under the rug because people just didn't want to deal with it, or they didn't feel like it was their problem. Like, even when they were talking about AIDS, remember they used to say, oh, that's a gay man's disease, right? They used to, when in actuality, anybody can get HIV AIDS, right? So anyway, the story of Connor was very sad because the police let the young man go back into his house. They went into his house. They could tell that it smelled bad. And he always had this excuse was, oh, my parents sent me some bad meat and it's just pork chops and I didn't cook the pork chops. And it's like, yes, bad meat smells away. But I know that a dead body smells like that times like 10. Okay? And so, and I say that because meat that you get from like a butcher or stuff, it's already been, it's cut, it's sometimes filled with the fat, what do they call it? The meat glue. And so it has preservatives in it already. Yes, when that goes bad, it smells bad versus a human life, you know, like we've all had a cut or something. Well, maybe we all haven't, but I definitely, if you've had surgery or something and you're open wounds, it smells bad. So just imagine smelling that and your body's decaying. So the officer Balzarak and the other guy, they dropped the ball. They let the boy go. He ultimately was never seen again. And Jeffrey Dahmer killed him. Another special moment, as I mentioned, Glenda Cleveland. Glenda Cleveland was his neighbor. She reportedly called the police on him like 50 times. And it became so recurring that they just didn't take her serious. They were like, ma'am, if there's no crime, what can we do? And she's like, someone is being killed. You know, she could hear the screams. She could hear the power tools as he was cutting up bodies. She could hear things being thrown around as people were trying to fight back. And it's so sad that this woman consistently was on his ass and nobody did anything. That alone was so triggering to me. It's like when the police were telling her, how do we know if it's an emergency if every time you call it's an emergency? It's like, yeah, every time I'm calling it's an actual fucking emergency. Send someone out. And then to just send someone out and him play this coy white guy, oh, I'm just doing gay stuff, and that instantly, and he knew that saying that trigger word, oh, I'm gay, we're doing gay stuff, would instantly make the police uncomfortable and not want to look into him. So, I mean, he was a criminal mastermind, quite honestly. He wasn't a genius, but he definitely was a criminal mastermind in that respect. What else? The parents and his grandmother being enablers. Listen, as I mentioned, I Google certain things throughout the series because I'm just like, I don't know what's real and what isn't. One of the things that I Googled was because in the series, there's a young man that Jeffrey drugs in the grandmother's house. Because at one point before he moved and was Glenda Cleveland's neighbor, he lived with his grandmother. And so the young man came in and the grandmother was like, Julio's knocked out. And the grandmother was like, no, I'm going to stay here until he wakes up. And the grandmother protected this young man, this young black man, who he was having an issue with his car. And Jeff said that he would help him and he offered him coffee and, you know, very random. And sure enough, the young man woke up. They took him to a bus stop, put him on the bus, and he went to the end of the line and he woke up in the hospital. He like passed out somewhere and woke up in the hospital. And he also went to the police and said, this man tried to kill me. He drugged me and tried to kill me. At this point, Jeffrey Dahmer has so many accusations that it's like, why are we not looking into him? We have the young boy he molested. That happened at the grandmother's house. We have this young black man, and he was convicted of that, by the way. So he technically was a child I don't want to say child molester, but you know, a pedophile. That's what it was. He was technically, legally, you know, a pedophile. And so for someone else to come out and say, hey, he tried to kill me, he drugged me, the police didn't take him serious. And I'm just like, I'm glad that the grandmother stood up and was saying like, no, I'm going to stay here till the police come. But also it's kind of like she enabled him because she knew what was going on. His dad, oh, his dad pissed me off. Let me tell you something. I understand that we love our children and we love our children to the death because we know them in a different light, right? We love them, we birthed them, we raised them, and so our perspective of them is different than someone else, right? And of course, they're different in front of us than they are to the outside world. But his dad was an enabler. Several instances, you knew something was going on. Even at the grandmother's house, it smelled. He clearly had dead bodies like in the basement, dead bodies under the house. And the grandmother was complaining of the smell. And it's like, you guys are constantly complaining of the smell of decaying bodies and no one did anything. So his parents, and I won't say his mom, because his mom left him when he was like in high school. She finally left. She had postpartum. She was taking a lot of drugs when she was pregnant with him. You know, he found her ODing several times. And so his mom, for whatever reason, had her own issues, but his dad was an enabler and his grandmother was an enabler. What else stuck out to me? All right. The Tony Hughes episode. Now, everyone's like, oh my God, the Tony Hughes episode, the Tony Hughes episode. Now, let me say this. I agree. I love, again, from a cinematic perspective, I love the way it was shot. Most of the episode is in complete silence because Tony Hughes was deaf. So most of the episode is in complete silence. And I love that. I love how it was shot perfect. What I didn't like, and this is another thing I Googled, was Tony Hughes and Jeffrey Dahmer in a relationship? Because how it was portrayed in the series is that they were in some sort of relationship and that Tony Hughes actually liked him and that Jeffrey Dahmer actually liked him, maybe because he didn't just take him back and kill him one night, but actually, you know, was dating him and repeatedly seeing him. He ultimately still killed him. But I guess he prolonged it because he really liked Tony, because he was different, right? Because of his disability. And I was just kind of like, is this real? Because I'm sorry, they tried to play it up like they were in this cute relationship and I just wasn't here for it. And maybe that's how it happened, but at that point, and again, the murders were not in order. Tony Hughes was actually one of his like last few victims. I think Tony Hughes was like maybe victim number like 14 or like 13. And so he had like 17 victims. So he still killed people after Tony Hughes, but he was on the latter end of it. So he had already killed so many people prior. So for them to romanticize it like they were in this like cute little relationship was annoying to me. Yeah, it was annoying. And then of course, the Tanya Isbell courtroom scene. The woman, and I meant to Google this, but the woman who played Miss Isbell in that courtroom, baby, that 30 seconds, I mean, I got goosebumps immediately from that scene. And goosebumps really, oh my God, is it raining? It just started raining out of nowhere. And goosebumps just in general from the actual court scene. That's actually, like I said, this happened when I was young. I actually remember that this woman like really went crazy on him in the courtroom. And the lady who depicted her in the series, oh my God. I mean, she literally just had like 2 or 3 scenes. Like the scene when the police came to the house to tell them that her brother had been killed. Errol Lindsay was her brother. And then the courtroom scene and but that 30 seconds, I instantly tears. And this was her just reenacting that scene. I then went to YouTube and looked up the actual courtroom scene again, and that yell of pain is like, you could feel the pain. And so to the woman who enacted that scene, bravo to you, Miss Lady. Bravo to you. You killed it. They said, girl, we're going to give you 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds to show us what you're going to do. And she gave us the best 30 seconds, one of the highlights of the entire series. So shout out to her. All right, so those were just some of the moments that I wanted to talk about, right? So now I want to talk about pros and cons of what I liked and what I didn't like. So I'm going to start with the pros. Like I said, the way it was shot, the cinematography of it all, the sequential timeline of the movie, how it's going forward and backwards simultaneously, while showing his victims in a random order. It literally, to think about that from a cinematography perspective is just amazing. How Ryan Murphy is doing 3 to 4 different timelines in one episode. That's crazy. You know, we watch shows and they start with, they give you a piece of the end and then they go back to the beginning, or they show you the end and then they show you, or it goes from beginning to end. But no, Ryan Murphy he did front to back to forth, and then randomly put the victims in there. I mean, the storytelling, the cinematography, the costumes, the characters. Evan Peters, you already know. Ryan Murphy is not going to go very far from his like core group that he always has on American Horror Story. And Evan Peters is one of those people. He's the person that played Jeffrey Dahmer. He's amazing. He's an amazing, amazing actor. And I wonder if this particular series was like his Joker, his Heath Ledger. You know what I mean? Like, because you have to really get to a place of crazy, a place of just like horrendous, eerie scariness to get into that character. I'm sure it took a lot out of him. So shout out to Evan. Man, loved him. Cons. The triggers in the movie. 1, I don't like, I mean, it's reality, but I didn't like the police. The officers that, you know, because they caught on very quickly that when everything came out, like, hey, you all were on the scene when this young man, this 14-year-old, Connor, what was his last name? Connor McCragsanack. I don't want to butcher his last name, but he has like a long last name. But the young man, you guys were there. Balzarak and the other cop, you guys were there, and you released him back to this sick monster. And so the police chief wanted to fire them. And then this is one thing I didn't Google, but I meant to Google. At some point, these officers got like an award for being like courageous or some shit. And I'm just like, was that real? Pissed me off. Another thing, and this happened in real life, so this isn't necessarily a con about the series, but just in general, the victims were being harassed. I didn't like it, and it's the reality, but it's like, I don't know of a case in history where the victims were harassed. Okay, the Lindsay family, the Hughes family, Connor's family, Glenda Cleveland, like these people were all harassed and they were the victims of this man. I didn't like how they how people were romanticizing him. Once he got in jail, you're the new Freddy Krueger, you're the new Michael Myers. It's like those are fictional characters, and this is someone that actually killed people and took people's lives. So it's just sick. It's sick. Let me tell you something. I'm a Halloween baby. I love horror films. Like, from the time I was 2 years old, my mom told me I wanted to watch scary movies, and I love scary movies. But there's a difference between loving scary movies and horror and being into, unsolved mysteries and crime stories. I am into those things. But to be a fan of someone who has killed and mutilated people and young men and kids, and it's like to romanticize that and then blame the victims. They were telling the Connor's father, they were an Asian family, go back to where you came from. Get on a boat and go back to where you came from. They were calling the black people spooks and gooks. And it was just like, what am I? Trigger warning in this series. There's so many triggers. Police triggers, racial triggers, sexual identity triggers. So many different triggers. But this is America. This is what really happened. This is what's going on. I could go on and on. I understand that we have to get to, and we have to go back, and we have to go to the origin of how he became a serial killer. We have to understand what made him that way. But when you go back through his life, it wasn't that he really went through anything that was so out of the ordinary than everyone else. Okay, his mom had some mental health issues, some depression issues, but he had another parent. His father was there. And most people would say, oh, well, if the father isn't in the home and the mom is, but the mom is there. Now, I will say this, and a lot of serial killers, they have mommy issues. I think that is something that is recurring with a lot of serial killers, is that they have mommy issues. So, okay, fine. But I wasn't here for trying to humanize him. I wasn't here for it. And then the last thing. I didn't like how they added in a scene from John Wayne Gacy, because I guess they kept trying to compare the two. I didn't like how they showed Jeffrey Dahmer being baptized in jail. And his killer, Christopher Scarver, and I'm going to say it, shout out to him. Yes, Christopher Scarver was in jail for a murder. I did look that up. Apparently, Christopher Scarver, he was a young man, and he was working at some like youth program or something like that. And they didn't pay him correctly. So he went up to the job site to get his money, because he was like, they didn't pay him correctly. And the guy gave him $15, and he ended up shooting and killing the guy. Now, he didn't run. They found him on his girlfriend's steps of her home, and he gave himself up, and he said, I know what I did was wrong. So he was a troubled young man who sounds like he had an anger incident that drove him to take someone's life, and that's why he was in jail. But I didn't like how they tried to baptize Jeffrey Dahmer, and that he was turning his life around, and he had, he was, forgiven for his sins, and he was anointed, and all of this bullshit. I didn't like it. If you go according to the series, he was baptized in May, and then he was killed in, I think, November, and he was beaten to death. Christopher Scarver literally beat him to death in the gym with, I guess, one of those bars, like heavy metal bars in the gym. And I loved it. For me, it was poetic justice. It was poetic justice that a black man killed him. So many black and brown, just men in general, that he killed, but so many black and brown men and boys that he killed. I thought it was only fitting that a black man killed him. And that was actually the best part of the entire movie, is that a black man killed him. And he didn't just like kill him quick. He beat him, he bludgeoned him to death, and he absolutely deserved that. He deserved to die a painful, brutal, gruesome, gory death, and he did. So he was baptized, and he felt like he had atoned for his sins, but he had not. And Christopher Scarver said, sometimes God, and I don't know if that part was true, but he stood by that sometimes God sends his people to enact revenge on his behalf as well. So that was that. all in all, y'all, I'm gonna give the series an A1. Like I said, it reminded me of the Central Park 5 because it's real events that really happened. Shout out to Niecy Nash. She was in both. Niecy Nash played Glenda Cleveland. She did an amazing job. But just overall, the cast, the crew, the costumes, the storytelling, the cinematography, everything about this was A1. But it does come with a trigger warning because a lot of the police and racial and sexual identity and you know, it's a lot, but it's real. So I do recommend you guys watching it. If you guys have seen it, let me know what you guys think below. I know this is a long video, but it's 10 episodes and I wasn't going to go episode over episode. So let me know what you guys think about the series. How did it make you feel? Did it trigger you? Were you alive at that time? How do you feel in general about the series and about what happened in real life? So that's it, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys, like I said, in the next one. We got some things coming up. I'm excited, and I'm excited to be back. All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.